order. So a couple of minutes maybe just to switch over some technology, and then I think we're ready to move on. Don't forget, by the way, there is, of course, the TechCrunch Disrupt drinking game, which I hope you're all playing both at home and in the audience. The highlight is anytime someone says, "That's a great question," take a drink. Anytime someone says, "That's a great question," when clearly they mean go fuck yourself, take 2 drinks. The rest is online. It's on TechCrunch. So I think we're ready to go. Please welcome to the stage, who are already here, Dave Chase, the CEO, and Bassam Saliba, the President and CTO of Avado.
All right, thank you. Well, the graphic we have here, it'll come up in just a second, shows the increase in how much more we're spending on healthcare versus the 1950s, and that flat line is the increase in all other consumer goods. The difference, if you can't see the scale, it's 274-time increase versus 8 times. That is the definition of an industry that needs disruption. Fortunately, that exact thing is happening. There's new care and payment models that are coming out and really disrupting the current model. With that, though, there's a demand for a new category of software we call patient relationship management. So think of it a little bit like Salesforce.com for healthcare, with the key exception being the customer, aka the patient, is actually using the software as well. And the key insight for Avado's business is that healthcare works best and costs least when there's a partnership between the patient and the provider, and that partnership is our core focus. So let me set up the scenario for a demo. We've got Dr. Johnson, who has a patient, Debbie. Debbie is pregnant, and she also has diabetes. And when we get in here, you'll see that she's just had her first prenatal appointment. After the appointment, Dr. Johnson sent her a pregnancy tracker. And this pregnancy tracker is a set of notifications that remind her about upcoming appointments, what vitals to track, other health and wellness information that's key for her. And this is built in what we think of as kind of our secret sauce, the Avado Services Framework. And the thing that's important to recognize in this type of scenario is healthcare, your health can go sideways when you're not following a care plan. And that frequently happens because the doctor tells you some things and you forget or you misunderstand what they're saying. And that's a real issue. And that's particularly prevalent in chronic conditions. And the amazing thing with chronic conditions is in this country alone, we spend 1.8 trillion, that's with a T, on chronic conditions. 3/4 of all healthcare spend. And so hopefully we'll not get timed out again. But so that will give you a sense of the issue. And what we find is that the current health IT systems are really geared around that office visit. And so that, in reality, is only 1% of your life or less. It's that other 99% that is so critical to maintaining or returning you or a family member to health. And that other 99% is our focus. And so now we've switched over to the patient side. So Debbie, will fast forward, she's received a notification on her iPhone app or within our system. And why don't you go back to where we can see the providers. And if you scroll down, you can see all of our providers are here, whether or not they're on Avado. Of course, if they're on Avado, they can do a lot more. So there's a check-in service that we'll see here. And what that check-in service does, it's a rich message, and that will bring up, if it comes up with our cooperation, basically it brings up your connected health record. And connected is the operative word. It's bringing in the latest information of your medications, your conditions, your allergies, insurance information, and then you send that off to your doctor and you're going to have a much more streamlined appointment. Now, we'll get out of this and come back to the home screen. I think of this as your health dashboard. It's sort of the equivalent, if you think of what Mint did for your personal financial records, Avado does for your health records. And so you've got these trackers, you've got the messages down below, and the trackers can be both user-defined and standard stuff. Messages, this news feed, which actually is fed on the provider side. They've got a Yammer-like tool that feeds this into you to keep you up to date on relevant information. And so that's it for the quickie demo, there's actually 10 man-years of development here, so there's a lot more behind the scenes. But let's talk about early adopters. There's a few key segments. There's wellness-oriented primary care, which is really the direction of the future, and these models are really exploding and having amazing results. Employers pick up a lot of the tabs, so there's some very innovative things going on there. The whole continuous care, whether it's a chronic care or you're caring for a family member, either a child or an elderly parent, we're getting good receptivity there. And finally, the programs that are training the next generation of doctors are finding this very interesting. From a business model perspective, the straightforward freemium business model, the features that are free are ones that actually drive use and virality. And then the services is some of the magic in our business model where both Avado and third-party services come in there. And if we have more time, we can talk about clinical trials. So wrapping up, Avado's name was inspired by a little village in Italy where people live longer than anywhere else. In fact, men live as long as women, which is unusual. And our belief is with the healthcare partnership that we empower, you can live a longer life, higher quality, and actually pay less in the process. And we believe this is a movement, and we invite you to join us. And thank you for your time.
That was Avado. Apparently, if you're pitching a health startup, end with some heartwarming clip art. That's my advice. Who wants to start?
I don't have expertise here. I'm just wondering you talked about the traction. It seemed like a lot of product to come at me. And so how do you get people to what's the hook to get people to come and at least commit to this product?
Yeah, what you see particularly like in these wellness-oriented models, the people who are operating, the doctors who are operating those models, they're using email and text for a lot of that interaction. So this is actually more secure and integrated with the rest of their system, and just makes it a lot easier to be accessible to their provider.
So the sales is into the medical offices?
Yes.
Okay.
And then who controls the data? Do I,
you as a patient, decide what you're going to share. Now, the information from the provider, if they're participating, they can obviously send stuff down to you, but it's in your control, and as long as you've allowed for that handshake, then you can allow.
And then
that.
who pushes who to use this? Is this top down or bottom up?
I think it's going to be more top down. I mean, the reality is, until this is broadly adopted, if your provider says, hey Tony, this is the way we're going to interact, then suddenly you can get all their patients to use
and
it.
Then I just had one observation. So I think the premise is quite nice, but that's incredibly feature rich, and there's a lot going on there. Why haven't you simplified and gone for like dentists or optometrists or something very simple and singular, that you can let the model evolve? It's rare for us to see consumer-oriented products be so robust in the beginning. They're generally single purpose, and that utility is what drives mass adoption. Foursquare, Tumblr, WordPress, Twitter.
Yeah, I mean, because we need to focus in on both sides of the equation, and it's really a completeness question, and we have a lot of background in the healthcare arena, and it's about a matter of being taken seriously, and we didn't feel like if we didn't have some of these features that we'd be considered as a serious player, because there's obviously a very competitive landscape.
I think therein lies the challenge, because I think I'm just racking my brain here. I can't think of any examples of where you have to service two masters in the beginning and create compelling product.
Yeah.
So I think that's a big challenge.
So I'm curious about a few different models of interaction. So pregnancy is interesting because normally there's one doctor. It's kind of a fresh start event where there's fresh data coming in, a finite time period in which to kind of establish that relationship, and there isn't a network of providers. You're usually working with one person. Primary care wellness can be the same way. You can have test results coming from third parties, but it's usually you and your doctor. Chronic conditions tend to be across a diversity of providers, each doing their own specialization. And it feels to me like your product is going to depend upon some network effects there that are the kind of like the hard pain in the ass kind of network effects, where even if your primary care physician is into it, you need to have these other doctors signed up. What's your plan for addressing that kind of who's on platform, who's off platform, making this thing still work?
Well, where you see with the chronic conditions where they're making a big dent, as an example in Columbus, Ohio, where they are saving $5,500 a year on diabetes, Medicaid diabetes of patients. It's when you have a quarterback that's the primary care doctor. One of the reasons we have this explosion of cost is it's so fragmented. And when you see a primary care and these wellness-oriented, they're basically the quarterback of your chronic care team. So even if the other doctors aren't participating, they can actually still have a big effect on coordinating that care, because that's kind of your go-to person.
Do the interactions through this platform, are they billable? Are doctors getting reimbursed for this? I mean, what's kind of, in the broader market, what's the doctor's incentive for using this platform?
Yeah, so the current model is all about do something, paid for something. The new model that are rising, like the one that Jeff Bezos is funding, for example, it's more like a health club membership where it's pay a flat fee and then it's pretty much unlimited use. I mean, they're actually one of our first customers is an organization called Medline that just opened one of these type of clinics in Mountain View. And so they're not worried about the compensation. Now in today's fee-for-service model, they basically, to exaggerate, they don't care about you if you're not in their office because they don't get paid if you're not in the office. And the ones operating in these models, they'll tell you 2/3 of the time you don't need to come in the office. It wastes everybody's time and money, but that's the only way they get billed in those models.
You should partner with the EKG guys.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and that's one thing with those trackers. I mean, we have a manual way to do that. One of the things we're working on right now is integrating one of these iPhone-based blood pressure monitors.
Bijan?
Yeah, I guess two things, positive and negative. On the positive side, this is like long overdue. I don't understand why patients don't have their information at their fingertips. I mean, we pay taxes this way, we pay, bills this way, we invest online. Why I can't get my electronic medical records is crazy. So I mean, it's overdue. I think the part where I struggle here is you said this is meant for healthcare, but it's kind of not. I mean, it's working with service providers and businesses and healthcare organizations. I mean, I think the way this problem is going to be solved is by focusing on the end user and it really empowering the end user to take charge and take control. And I feel like if you just try to market this to the establishment, they don't seem to be capable of willingness to go over the finish line. So something that's more end user centric, I think, is going to be the right way, but that's just my view.
Well, and there's in fact, Chris, one of his favorite not-for-profits, we're in very active discussions because they and many of the health-oriented not-for-profits are very focused in on that partnership, so they can bring a lot of consumers, but they also have trust and credibility with the providers, and so that's where we think we can kind of bridge that gap.
All right, we're out of time. Big round of applause for Avado.
Thanks.
Woo! Yeah, any whooping is encouraged. You don't have to just clap. All right, we're